Hey, everybody. Always Booking Comedy. It's Monday night. Late start, my fault this time. We got Steve Sabo, though. Amazing guest. Going to be a super fun conversation today from Cleveland or kind of Akron. I don't know, somewhere in Ohio. Where are you?
Well, I currently live in Toledo, but I was born in Cleveland, so Cleveland works. That's fine.
Okay, cool. We'll stick with Cleveland. It rocks like Steve does. How are you? How was your weekend?
It was good, man. I had two really great shows. It was I'm a road dog, traveling all over the place. So I had a Friday show in Wisconsin, and then Manitowoc, and then Saturday I was in Charleston, West Virginia. So
Whoa.
A little bit of a haul between the places, but
You drive?
I do. I drive most places. I prefer the drive. I like to have the freedom of that.
Yep.
Not every time I fly, but a lot of times when I fly, it's I always have to fly early just to make sure I don't miss the show. And then there's always extra expense and trouble. And if I got my car, then
I think that's a secret of comedy is driving instead of flying.
Yeah.
You can if you get in early, you can go to a museum or eat some local food. You got something to talk about on stage later.
Sure.
Yeah, driving rules. I love it. I drove to Nebraska this weekend and back
there you go.
after a show Saturday night. Did a couple of theaters.
Nice.
Super fun. Yeah, man. So you've been doing comedy forever.
Yeah, 34 years.
34 years.
34 years. I don't look that old, but trust me, I've got the mileage on it.
Yeah. Wow. How old were you when you started?
18 years old. Started at 18.
Goodness. In Cleveland?
No, I started actually in Miami. I was going to college in Miami at the University of Miami, Florida, and they had a contest. It was a CERTS college comedy competition, and I just it was one of those things that the flyers were up all over campus, and I walked by it every day, and I was like, oh, that'd be fun, and then I just never signed up. And then on the very last day that you could possibly sign up, I said, you know what, I'm just going to see if they have spots. Like I was giving myself an out because I knew they'd be full, but they were like, yeah, we'll squeeze you in. And I'm like, oh, no. Then I only had like 2 days to prepare my set, and but I did it, and I immediately fell in love with it. And that's the whole thing, is that's what comedy does for you. If you go up and you have a good first set or just whatever, it just hooks. It gets its hooks in you, and then you have to do it. And like all I remember, I don't remember much about the actual set. I remember everything leading up to it, how petrified I was, and then I remember saying, good night. That was my time or whatever I said. And then that feeling afterwards, which is that high I had for so long afterwards, like for days and weeks, and just I got to get this again. I got to do this again, and I was instantly hooked. So that's my story.
That's incredible. That's awesome. We got a regular viewer from the Carolinas, and he says, I think 34 years is a record. The headliner I worked with this weekend was coming up on 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
John Novosad, who is arguably it's a different show that I did. It was pre-pandemic or kind of came out during the pandemic.
Okay.
I think he's around 40 years, but the 34 is pretty good. And especially John looks about 120 years old. So you're definitely the youngest we've seen that has done comedy 30 plus years.
Yeah. For that kind of tenure, it's not that many comics start as young as I did. Some do. Like I think isn't Dave Chappelle started when he was like 14 or 15 or something like that?
Yeah, so did Matt Rife, apparently.
Yeah. But it's rare. Most people start a little later.
Have you crossed paths with him?
Matt Rife?
Yeah.
Never have. It's because they say he's from Ohio, but apparently, not the same times that I was. But
okay. Got it.
what can you do?
Yeah. He's in Providence now, if anybody's looking for him. I just found this out.
I heard that. I saw on some podcast he bought a house out there because it's cheaper than New York City, of course, obviously.
Yeah, he's doing regular spots at the club in Providence.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I was shocked to hear that, but pretty interesting. Cool. Well, were you around for VHS tapes? So was that long ago?
Oh yeah. I was, when I started doing comedy, it was pre-internet when I started, right? So when I actually started doing the road, this is something I think about this all the time. I was thinking about this the other day, is that we had actual physical paper maps that got us from state to state, and
I remember
we
those. I don't know if you ever got
pager.
the AAA triptychs, but
right.
I into those. You flip them, man. Only 4 more pages to go.
Right. I had to get itineraries mailed to me, received them in the mail. If I contacted the booker, they had to call me back on my pager. I mean, that's That's how old, my comedy career is. Yeah. So it was back in the VHS
Do you
tapes.
think it's
I
better
had
now or
stacks of them.
worse?
What's that?
Is it better now or worse?
Oh
Or a
man,
mixed bag?
it's so that's a really good question, and that's something I think about a lot too. Is that it's better in a lot of ways and it's worse in a lot of ways because like back in the day there was I if I'm maybe I'm my memory is a little bit different, but there were certain bookers that booked most of the country, right? So if you got in with a booker, say like Funny Business or Ken Moeller or C.W. Kendall or somebody like that, then you could have like 12 weeks booked, 15 weeks booked, 20 weeks booked, in one phone call. So you make one phone call, you book half your year up, then you fill it in, the rest of it in with other things. It was so much easier. Nowadays, there's so many independent people out there, and it's one show here, one show there. So you have 52 weeks. If you want to work 3 or 4 days a week, you might need 150, 200 bookers sometimes to fill up your whole calendar if you're working the whole year. And
Yeah.
it's a lot more work. But back then, like it was, you physically mailed pictures to people, and now everything's digital, everything's online, and it's a lot easier to be seen, a lot easier to be noticed, but it's also a lot easier to be ignored by bookers too. It really is.
Oh man. Has travel changed in meaningful ways, or is it still, airports and rental cars and
Yeah, it's pretty similar. The GPS system has made everything better, right? Everything changed, and the gas prices and tolls and stuff have all gone way up higher. So it's like you can't really the way things used to be back in the day, and I always feel old when I say that. Like back in my day, clubs used to run from like Tuesday through Sunday, so you'd have like one day off, and sometimes you might have 2 days off before your next gig. But you only had to find one day or 2 days to get lodging or sleep in your car or do whatever. Nowadays, most clubs are going to be at most 3 days. If you're doing a club, even the Funny Bones, a lot of them have gone to like 2 or 3 days. So you're stuck in a situation where 3 or 4 days you're off work. So you either got to find something else somewhere, relatively close to fill in on an off day, or you got to put yourself up, or you drive home. So you might drive out for 4 days, drive home, drive out for 4 days, drive home. Whereas before, I'd be out for 8 to 12 weeks at a time without ever coming home at any point in time. So that made travel a little bit um, more. It was easier in a sense that I put a lot of
yeah,
miles on the car, but I'd be out there, for
right.
the
It's
whole
more
time. Not
efficient in a way.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right, more efficient for sure.
Huh. What about audiences? Have they changed? I guess 30, 40 years, that was after the 80s boom.
Yeah, so I started in 1991, and it's strange because the clubs were starting to go away and work was starting to go away. But I do remember I was back. It's weird because back then I feel like I did a lot more clubs back in the day. There were a lot more clubs to do, so I did a lot more clubs. And the clubs were usually pretty full on the weekends, and the Wednesdays and Thursdays you might get 15 or 30 people. It's not any different than like a one nighter would be nowadays, except for that nowadays a lot of those one nighters might be on a weekend that you're getting 30 or 40 people, whereas the clubs would always have 200, 250, 300 people in the room every show back in the day. But you'd always dread the late show Friday. They'd be drunk and obnoxious and that kind of stuff. And then the Sunday shows was always the biggest disappointment of the week because you're there, you just got off the big high from Saturday. You had two great killer shows on Saturday, and you show up on Sunday. It's a 6 p.m. show, and there's 14 people in the audience, and they're all in their 70s, and you're like, oh, like what am I doing? And that's the end of the week. But
Yeah.
it's
Sorry, go ahead.
no, I'll just say like, the difference is a lot of times nowadays. Back then, people showed up to see a comedy show. They didn't really know who was going to be on stage. They just knew they were going to be entertained. And nowadays, it seems like people are internet savvy. A lot of people have seen your clips in advance, and they're making a decision if they want to see you or not see you. And that is a big difference, I find.
Interesting.
Excuse me.
That's okay. Do you think that I don't know, has technology changed at all in the like in the clubs? Like lighting, sound, like
Sure.
it's better. Really? It's
No,
better?
yeah. Everything's better. Sound is always better. Like if you remember the thing that I look back on this, with I used to love how dirty and chintzy some of those clubs were. Like you'd show up and there'd be like just two little hot lights in the corners, just burning a hole inside of you, and the sound might work, it might not work. The sound systems that's 30, 40 years old, but everything is better now than it used to be. Everything's digitized. Everything is better in the clubs and stuff. But to me, I'm still always going to be nostalgic for the really dirty, dank, falling apart rooms. I don't know why. I just
Do you
really
have
love
a
that
favorite room in America? Even if it's like a time shot in time, like a snapshot in time, like at a
stuff.
certain
Yeah,
point.
it's funny because I have places that I like, right?
Okay.
So my favorite city to play ever is Boise, Idaho. Every time I played Boise, it's been an amazing show with amazing audiences that really come out to enjoy it. I don't even know how to explain how that
Do,
audience is so much different than anyone else.
do you do
But
Liquid Lounge out there? Or what kind of rooms are there?
I never did look. I did. I can't remember the name of the club that I used to do out there, and that's the crazy
Okay.
part about it. Because I played 3 different places there. They were all great. Can't remember the name of any of them, which is insane. But
Well, I
the
think
two,
Boise is kind of like,
yeah,
it's an interesting mix of, I love doing small towns.
uh
Like I just did North Platte, Nebraska and Kearney, Nebraska. And
huh,
I also did Fleming, Colorado on the way out, which is a town of like 428 people. But 17 came out, which was 3.9% of the
nice,
population, which I was pretty psyched about. But they're like, I mean, not to make fun of myself at all, but they're fun because their expectations are lower.
oh yeah,
They're so excited
yeah,
to have somebody from a big city. It's like, I'm at a very low level, right? I'm like an average comedian out of Denver, Colorado, like, not been doing it that long, but I go to Fleming, Colorado, and I might
yeah,
as well be Matt Rife. Like
yeah.
they don't like it's like crazy how good they think I am.
Oh yeah,
And I think
there's
that's super
nothing
fun.
better.
In Boise, you got an interesting mix of like small town. They don't get a lot of big city entertainment there, but it is kind of a city. So they
Oh yeah,
are kind of cultured and you
hmm
can do smarter jokes.
yes,
Uh,
yes.
so,
And they understand nuance, and they understand, they're not. It's not just a bunch of drunks in camouflage. It's
yeah.
not a, you know what I mean. It's
Yes.
they're real people that they're educated and they have jobs and they came out to be entertained. So I really love about that. Now the states, my favorite state to play is Wisconsin. I don't know if you've gotten out there very often, but Wisconsin, they just, God, they're such great audiences. They come out, they get pretty drunk, but it makes it fun,
Yeah, they're
like,
good people. The Midwest, I love the Midwest. I
yeah.
did a Christmas party in December in Wisconsin and
Hmm.
flew into Chicago and a comic drove me out and it was fun. We had a good time. We passed a lot of Amish buggies on the way, which
Yeah,
we
you
got a
will.
question from online. Let's check in on that.
Oh,
Have you noticed any patterns with comics who keep grinding it out versus those who take a break or quit? Well,
wow.
I think the ones that quit are happier.
Yeah.
Go
Um,
ahead, Steve.
that's an interesting question, right? Because there are a lot of comics that stick with it and grind it out that become very bitter, that become very jaded, and you see them. They seem like just grizzled and angry at life type people. But I find that a lot of those comics are also comics that put together an act 20 years ago and they don't keep writing and they don't keep developing. So a lot of those people, they end up, they're doing their same show and they're schlecking it from town to town to town to town, and it's a great show, but they're not growing and they're not getting where they want to be, and they're mad about that.
Mhm.
But I think that the comics that do this for the love of the game, which is what I do, like do this because you love entertaining people, that you love writing material. Because to me, nothing in the world feels better than when you come up with an idea and then you bring it out on stage for the first time and it works, right? And it works, and you can go, oh, and I can make it better. The next week I'm going to come back, do the same joke, and I'm going to twist it, and I'm going to change it, and I'm going to put this over here, and it's that development, that thing, and that's what I love about comedies. It's so organic that a joke that you started in December might be a completely different joke, by August.
Yeah.
And it could have started with a 30-second bit and it might be a 7-minute bit by August. And there's so many different layers that develop because that's how comedy works. Is you start with one idea. Like I had a joke that not that long ago that came up with an idea. And then the joke worked, the joke worked, the joke worked, and it kind of petered out at the end. So then I changed one word of the punchline, and all of a sudden, the ending works. And it's all like, that's what I was missing, that one word, and it.
Do you listen to your sets?
I do. Oh yeah. I try to record almost every set. If I can. The only time I don't record is when you're in a situation where the room's so packed and there's really no place to put a camera. And
do you video? You do video as well?
I do. Yep.
Yeah. Do you watch them, all of them, or do you listen mostly?
It's a little bit of both. Like I'll play it, and sometimes I'm looking for clips to put online and things like that. But I'm really there are varying times. Sometimes I'm watching myself too, because I want to see. Sometimes you see things in yourself when you watch yourself that you didn't know that you were doing, little ticks that you do, little expressions or foot movements and stuff. Like that's one of the things I always hated. It's like I never knew what to do with one hand. One hand's always flopping around weirdly. And then when you watch it enough, you can go, okay, I can do this with this hand. And I can do something over here. So like I don't drink much on stage anymore. I used to drink on stage. And I used to hold a beer bottle in my hand. That's what I used to do with that other hand. But now that I'm not doing that anymore, it's just some empty, weird, limb flopping around half the time. So you got to actually kind of like choreograph what you're going to do with your movements sometimes. Sure. And I think that when you watch it, that kind of stuff helps. You watch your posture and your angles of your feet, and you're leaning this way, or you're leaning that way. So I mean, writing is probably what I care about the most, is the words that I'm actually saying on stage. But I also think that the way you say them is just as important. So I do try to watch myself as well. Yeah, if I can.
Huh. Cool. Do you book some shows?
I do.
And you have any tips for people getting booked with you in particular, or bookers in general?
See, that I was wondering if how do other people get booked, or how to get booked with me. So these are tips that I would tell people. And the best way to get booked with me personally is, and this is actually something that you did actually when you did this, is when you first approached me, mention a person that told you who I was, right? Mm-hmm. So you say, so-and-so was talking about you. He said you have some great rooms, and I'd love to work for you. Tell me what you need. Here's a video, here's a headshot, here's my bio, whatever that stuff is. Because if I know that you've already been vetted by another comedian that I know and respect, then that's going to put you a little bit higher on the list than somebody that sends me a message that says, to who it may concern, doesn't even know who I am, right? Has no idea. I heard you have a great club. I'm like, well, I don't have one club. You don't even know where I'm from or what I do, right? Yeah. So do a little bit of research in advance, find out who the person is, find out if you know somebody that works for them. And it's not that hard to do, right? If somebody says, hey, do you work for Steve Sabo? No, I don't. What does he book? What room? Where's the shows? What kind of stuff is it? Get a little bit of information, contact me, and send me a tape, right? And don't send me 30-second clips. Send me a 5 to 10 minute tape. And I don't need longer than that, but it's got to be good from the beginning, right? Yeah. And that's something that I've seen a lot of comics that they'll start the tape out where I have a minute and a half intro from some MC, and I'm like, where is that you? Are you the MC, or are you the person that's getting introduced later on? And then you're doing crowd work of, hey, how's everybody doing? I'm already checked out at this point in time. Yeah. I mean, hit me with a punchline right out of the gate. I want to hit play. 30 seconds in, I want to hear your first laugh. I want to see, and I want it to be good, right? I don't want to hear crowd work. I want to hear material. You could be a great crowd work comic, but I want to know what your jokes are. Because you might be in a situation where there are 12 people in the audience, and you're not going to do a lot of crowd work for 12 elderly people. I need to know that you have solid jokes, right? So that's what I want. I want a 5 to 10 minute tape that kicks. That's great. Good audio, good video. And I always say, if your tape is recorded at an actual club, it's going to get a little bit more respect from me than if it's at a VFW hall down the road, right? Yeah. Because that means you're actually at least allowed on good stages, and that makes a difference.
Yeah, totally. So how about you flipping the question around, like you getting booked, anything like over the 34 years, anything that was super exciting for you?
Super exciting? I'm always excited when I get booked into a new club, right? Because one of the things that I always do is, and I think we as comedians, if we're being honest with ourselves, we know where our level is, right? Because there's a level of comedian that is a name comedian. The Dave Chappelle's, the Dave Attell's, there's certain people that have credits that are as long as your arm. Those people are going to be booked in a certain level of clubs. And then there's the other comics that those clubs that book those people on occasion, but at least 3 out of 4 of the weeks, they're going to have normal type comedians, right?
Right.
So when you get booked into a club that is a little bit above your normal pay grade, it's always exciting to be there. And so you get booked in that club, and whatever that is, because I like the clubs, man. That's my preference. I'll do theaters and stuff like that, and theaters are fine, but for me personally, I love the intimacy of a club. I like when the audience is 7 feet from me as opposed to 30 feet from me, in a theater and stuff like that. I want to be able to see the people I'm talking to as opposed to lights are in my eyes. I'm hoping that they're, somebody in that direction. So I will always love the clubs first and foremost. But that's the thing is the process of getting booked, if that's kind of in the question too, is the hardest thing. Is if I have advice for people, it's be persistent. Like I've had been on a booking list for some comedians for some bookers for 7 to 10 years before I finally got my first booking, because I kept sending them avails, and it's like, and then finally you get your booking and you're like, I did it. I finally did it. And then it's another 7, 10 years to get booked back. But still, at least you got in finally after like 7 or 10 years, So, yeah. I mean, your time will come, theoretically. Just keep going out there, keep putting out the work, and building a reputation as being a solid act. That's what I say,
Yeah. You got any, do you sell merch?
I do.
Yeah. You got any tips on merch? Any thoughts on merch? Has that changed over the years?
So, yeah. So the thing with merch is back when I first started doing comedy, all the comics were selling CDs. That was the big thing, was getting your CD out there. Nobody does CDs anymore. Now, Some people do download cards. I don't know that they sell that well, there are a lot of comics that will sell stickers and things like that, and they ask for donations and stuff. And I know that works for some comics. That's not the way that I do it. I like to sell, what I sell now is I sell t-shirts and I sell books. And the thing when it comes to t-shirts, and this is something that is very hard for people to understand. Now, I've sold probably a dozen different shirts over the years. Finding a good shirt is tough. I'm not going to say that it's not. There's work involved in that. But the thing that people need to understand, you're going to have a much better chance of finding a shirt that sells if you do two things. And the one is you have a shirt that guys and girls will both want, So either have a different shirt for guys and a different shirt for girls, because couples will come up and buy the shirts. They'll buy them as couples, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have just one shirt, one person's going to buy that shirt of the couple. But if you have a shirt that each of them can have that go together, like a woman's style and a men's style or a different thing, then they're going to buy them as couples. And women are the ones that control the money almost every single time. So if you're going to sell merch, it's going to be to the woman. So don't have something that's going to be offensive to the woman. You're not going to sell much, right? So find something for your shirt. This is what I've always told people, whether it's a shirt, whether it's a koozie, whether it's a sticker, whatever it is that you're selling, but sell something that somebody who was not at the show will laugh at, right? It's so simple. If you just have something that's your catchphrase and nobody that wasn't at the show doesn't know the catchphrase, why does somebody want to buy that, right? But if you have something that's funny standing on its own, it's going to sell, and you're going to sell a ton of it. You might sell, on your website. You might sell it to strangers. I've had people that showed up for karaoke after the comedy show, walked in and bought my shows. Bought my shirts because it's something that's funny to them. And I think that's the key: is if you want to sell something, one, make it that women will like. Two, have couples things, and have something that people will laugh at, that weren't at the show. It's not that difficult, but you'd be surprised how many people do it wrong.
Right. Well, that's another reason to drive too, to loop back, because shirts are heavy and bulky and to travel with.
Well, what's funny is I have books too, and they're harder to travel with.
I know,
and
so heavy.
a funny story is I was traveling. I was flying to. I think I was flying to. I want to say it was Wyoming, and I flew to a show in Wyoming, and they flagged me. They took me aside and they went through my stuff because they said they found it suspicious that somebody was taking books to
I,
Wyoming.
I I had the same. I had that happen recently with TSA. It was something about the density of the books. They were all
Uh-huh.
stacked together, and I was like, "Man, I hope I sell these and don't have to deal with it on the way back."
Right. Right. It's funny, and they're heavy to travel with, right? When you have
Yeah.
that many books in your bag, it's like
Yeah, and it's always such like a crapshoot. You're like, should I bring 3? Should I bring 11? Should I bring 25? Like,
I know, and it's always the
you
wrong
bring
number.
25 and you sell 2. You bring 3 and you got 10 people who want to buy it.
Yep, that's the hardest thing in the world is figuring out. And when you're doing T-shirts, you got to figure out what sizes. I only have this much room in my bag,
Right.
and then you fly to a place, and the only people that want shirts are smalls, or the only people that want shirts are double X's, and you're like, those are the ones I didn't pack, right?
Right.
So, yeah, it's tough. It's tough to figure out, but you know,
Let's talk about your. We're gonna wrap up in a few minutes. Let's talk
yeah.
about your book real quick. Why don't you tell us about it?
Well, I've actually got 6 books that are out now. But my 7th book, my newest book, is the one that I actually it's coming out in just a week or so, and it's actually so I have a book called How to Fail at Stand-Up Comedy, which is all about the mistakes that you can make in a comedy career. So people that listen to this podcast might actually really like this book because it goes beyond just you go to a normal comedy class and they'll tell you move the mic stand out of the way, don't ignore the light. They'll tell you all those type of things, and that stuff's in that book. But I also talk about all the other things that you also need to be careful about. It's like how to approach a booker after the show, not to get drunk at your performance, not to sleep with the wait staff. All these other things, nuances that people don't think about. You think you go into a comedy career, a lot of them do, because it's one big party, and they forget the fact that it's comedy business, and business is the most important part of comedy business. Now, the book that's coming out now is kind of a sequel to that book, but it's all about how to fail at stand-up comedy writing. So it's all about the writing mistakes that people make, and I give you all the basic formulas. I mean, people that have been in the business for a while, the writers in a while, the formulas of the rule of 3 and
Hard K sound.
hard K sounds. Yeah, rule of 3, hard K sounds, alliteration, all those type of things. Those are the formulas, and I talk about all those things. But I also talk about generating ideas, and I talk about the mistakes that you make, how a certain word could steer the wrong way, or going clean versus dirty, or how to make your jokes shorter to get the punchline faster. And I delve into all of those things that a lot of the comedy books that I did some research on other comedy books of writing and stuff like that, and they all have their techniques and they all have their little things, but most of them don't really concentrate as much on the mistakes that writers are making and why certain jokes are failing. And that's what I try to really concentrate most on in that book. So that's How to Fail at Stand-Up Comedy Writing, and it should be out on Amazon and available on my website. I actually have pre-orders on my website, stevesabo.com, right now.
Oh,
But the book,
everybody go check that out. Put
yeah,
in an order because that makes a big difference when it goes live.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it
Yep.
goes up
And
the
then
charts.
the book should be out within about 2 weeks. We're doing like one more final edit on it, but the cover's all ready. Everything's ready to go. And then it'll be good to go.
Nice. Did you I assume it's self-published. Did you
It is.
self-publish the other one as well?
Yeah.
That,
So on one of my books, one of my first book, I had a couple offers from some very small houses. But the publishing industry is at a point right now where books don't sell like they used to, like a million years ago. So if you sell 2,000 copies of a book, you're in like the top 10% of booksellers in the nation. Books just don't sell that much. And the percentage that they give you, like they might give you an advance. The advance I was offered was $1,000, versus sales, and you only get your residuals. I get something like $1 per book
yeah,
that
you
you
could make
sell.
that in 50 books.
Right. So if I self-publish it and my profit margin is so much higher, I can sell a significantly less amount of books to make the same amount of money, and it just makes more sense that way.
Totally. Yep. Okay, we got another question online. Do you have anything left you want to accomplish? That's a nice, good question to wrap this up.
Yeah, I've got a lot of things that I'd like to accomplish. I mean, what I think the key to comedy, keep things going, is to always have more goals. Whenever you achieve one goal, have another goal ready to go, right? So you always have something else that you want to do. So I haven't done a dry bar yet. That's my next thing that I really want to accomplish. I really want to get a dry bar special because as a road comic, I've kind of gotten a reputation as being more of an edgier, dirtier comic, but I also do a lot of corporate shows. But I want to show the world that I can also be just as funny, being squeaky clean as well.
Yeah.
So I really want to accomplish that.
Can you talk about the steps towards that? Like, I mean, I kind of know what the steps are, but I think people would be interested.
Yeah, there's a lot of steps involved in that, but there's the guy that runs it. Is it Keith? I'm blanking on his name right now.
Yeah.
But is you got to contact him, but you got to send them a clean tape and show them that you can do a clean tape. And then there's just a lot of steps that are involved in it, but they're going to give you feedback and tell you this will work, this won't work, because dry bar is actually more than just clean. It's Mormon clean. They film it in Utah. So yeah, you can't, like, I have a lot of clean jokes that still won't work for that, right? Because there's clean and there's church clean. So you got to look at church clean. I actually talk about that in the book too, is the difference between, club comedy, church comedy, corporate comedy, all those different types of things. Right. So you can, like, a lot of people think that clean is just not cursing, right? I had a girl that contacted me once that sent me her clean video, and it had a joke, I'm not even kidding, about raping Hitler. And I'd explained to her, I go, that's not clean. And she goes, oh, I don't curse in it. I go, but anytime you're talking about raping anything, it's not going to be clean. It's not, and so it's trying to it's also has to be like has some positivity to it, because you don't want to be, you can have clean jokes that are kind of really negative, and that's not really what dry bar is looking for either. So you got to have you
could have a personal story about divorce and they don't want to hear it.
Right. Exactly right. They don't. That's exactly right. It's a really good example, because they want things to be pro marriage, pro positivity. And if you're crapping on things that they look highly on, they're not going to want that on their special. So there's a lot of different angles to that. But that's something.
Do you have your tape already?
I have a tape, right? And that's my debate, is I have a tape that I could send them. I'd like to record another one to make it better. Yeah. And I'm looking to find a venue that makes sense to do that in. So yeah.
Cool. Neat journey. What else? So that was dry bar. Any other goals coming up?
Sure. I mean, right now I have I just released my seventh or eighth full length comedy album. And I want to get to at least 10. I mean, I think that's a really goal to have, is to have 10 of them. So I'm right now
doing with video, or are they all audio only?
So one of them is video as well. But that was a little bit older. I recorded one. I video recorded the one before this last one, and I just didn't like the way it turned out. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that I was 40 pounds heavier than I am now, and I just didn't like the way I looked on camera. So the next one might be a full special that's videoed, where
do you have a label that you work with, or do you have your own label? You seem like a do-it-yourself guy.
Yeah, I don't have a label yet. I do. My stuff is released. I'm on a label that distributes my stuff. Be Seen Media distributes all my video and audio things, but I make it myself, and then I get it to them, and then they distribute it.
And then where does it just go to the platforms where you can buy it, or does it go to like the satellite radio?
It goes to all of those things. Cool. Yep. All my stuff's on Sirius XM and all those things. It's always fun when you're flipping through channels and you find yourself pop up there. It's always random when it happens. It's always fun. So there's that. So I want to do that. And then, if anything ever works out in that capacity, getting anything anywhere in the realm of Netflix would be amazing. But that's a much, much bigger goal, that you have to get to at some point. But
cool. Amazing, Steve. I love your energy, your optimism, your excitement about comedy. It's great chatting with you. Hope to see you on the road. We can talk more. How can people track you down? Sounds like you're all over the country. So if people are watching this in the future, Steve will be in your town in the next year.
I will. People say to me all the time, they go, so how far do you travel? I go everywhere. I travel everywhere. I've been to Iraq. I've been to Kuwait. I've been to a couple islands. I've been to almost every state in the nation. I'm still trying to. There's a couple of them I still got to cross off: Hawaii, Alaska, and Maine. But
Oh, I got rooms for you in Maine.
What's that?
I got rooms for you in Maine.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that because I definitely want to do Maine. So I have my own website, stevesabo.com. All my schedules are on there, but I'm also on all the socials. So you can find me on Facebook, on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Reels. I'm everywhere.
How many hours a week do you spend putting doing social media stuff on those platforms, would you say?
It's a good question. Not as much as I should, to be honest with you. That's been the bane of my existence. It's the thing that I like the least, right? Because I just don't like putting myself out there in that way. But I do try to put up a post, a video every week. I try to at least one video a week. That's a comedy clip video. I put up scheduling. I put up flyers, and I try to disengage with the audience a little bit by responding to other people's things and putting up show notices, and then write a joke here and there, just something to. So I'm not just putting up videos, but I'm actually being a person.
So if you had to guess, 3 hours, over or under 3 hours?
I'd say about 3 hours is right. Yeah.
Okay.
It's about accurate.
Seems like a good number. Okay, cool. And what was that handle on there? It's the same on every platform?
Yeah. So everything except for Instagram is S Sabo Comic. Instagram, my S Sabo Comic Instagram got compromised, so I had to start a new one. So it's just Sabo Comic on Instagram, but all the other one is S Sabo Comic on all the platforms. And then obviously my website is stevesabo.com.
Okay. Any relation to was it Chris Sabo?
The Cincinnati Reds player? Yeah. I wish I was. No. There's a couple Sabos that are famous. One is Chris Sabo. He's probably the most famous. And then
I saw him at an Olive Garden once. I was like,
did you really?
14. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. It was neat.
Oh, that's crazy. That's funny. Dave the Snake Sabo was in the band Skid Row, but I'm not related to any of those people, to my knowledge. So unfortunately,
cool. Steve, this was a lot of fun. Stick around for a second. We're gonna close this out though, guys. There's a huge back catalog. Tune in every Monday. Always Bookin Comedy. Thanks for watching.